I wanted to talk about, this whole MGTOW thing. And through watching some of the videos, actually, I believe I am MGTOW. Like, that is me. I guess I've been MGTOW, like, really before it started, I think. I guess it was just like somebody just had to sort of create or manifest the movement, in some type of tangible or conceptual form for me to, follow it. But I definitely subscribe to this thing. It's definitely me. I do believe that society, it's a terrible place for men right now. Marriage and relationships in particular. If you're a guy who doesn't believe this, then I would question how vigilant and how aware you are, how cognizant you are in today's society. I think a lot of men, I think most men, matter of fact, I would venture to say that a good 90+% of men simply engage in relationships and they seek relationships just out of moral due diligence almost, just out of, society tells them they're supposed to do it. And so they look to do it. Now, if you outside of society, right? If you on the personal level, if you look at what marriage offers men on the personal level, it's very easy to make to come to the conclusion that these men haven't weighed the cost benefit analysis of marriage. To society, the cost benefit analysis of marriage is, it's awesome, right? Why? Because, well, first of all, society needs people to prolong itself, to keep going, to perpetuate, society, to perpetuate itself. So, and then, I mean, in marriage, obviously, one of the main points in marriage is to have kids. But I think we should start off really looking at where marriage came from. Marriage started off, and to somewhat still is, it's a civil union, but it was really almost a business contract. It was a contract in which it had practical implications, right? It was never really based off of love and romance. Romance is, if you deconstruct the word romance, the root word in romance is Roman. It's a romantic way of thinking. It's what romantic means, right? It's the Romans. It's thought of this way, right? So it's not a natural union, if I should say that. Romance isn't natural. It's a man-made idea, and it sort of popped up with the humanist movement, where think people pretty much, and it was displayed in Roman artwork, where people started looking at the human body, at everything that embodied humans as some type of art and something that added to life, because it gave life meaning. Life was before then relatively mundane. I mean, you lived for a certain set of reasons, which I think MGTOW is sort of going back to, but you live for a certain set of reasons and then you died. And so the romantic way of thinking was the introduction of humanism, which really sought, it looked as humans as their own gods rather than them living for another god. It placed man at the center of the universe and then looked to include everything else, right? And so, that being said, I think that marriage nowadays, it's sort of outdated. I believe it's, what's that word, archaic. And it's because men simply, it's not what it used to be. Marriage, it used to be, like I said, a social construct, right? A social contract rather, where a man would trade his wealth, he would trade his resources in exchange for a woman's fertility and basically her, what's the word I'm looking for? Her nurturing, right? Her nurturing as a mother, as a wife, as a homemaker. But men don't get that anymore. And if you look throughout history, if you look at, well, let me start by saying this. That was the glue to marriage, right? The glue to marriage was that men would provide and protect, and that women would have kids and raise them, right? And then make the house. And that was the glue. That's what held marriage together. Love, I don't really believe, well, as an aside, I don't really believe in the whole concept of love. Why? Because true love is unconditional. So that means if you have any conditions on love, then your love is not real love. If it takes a man having money for a woman to love him, then is her love unconditional? No, because it's conditioned. It's based on the fact, or it's predicated on him having money for her to love him. And then vice versa, right? But this is a MGTOW video, so we'll go with the perspective of men. And so that's why I really don't believe in the whole concept of love. I believe that marriage was really, it happened for practical reasons. Men, well, women knew that at a certain age, in MGTOW, they call it hit the wall. They knew at a certain age they would hit the wall. And so they needed to find a male. They needed, and before their 30s hit is really when the way hit the wall. Before their 30s hit, it was the optimal time for them to find a male, right? So they wanted to sort of leverage the power of their fertility and their good looks while they still had it. And the best time to do that was when they were young, right? Because then they would essentially have the pick of the litter, as it turns out to men. And that brought them in, men who were considerably successful, right? The better a woman looked generally meant the more fertile she was, and in biological terms, as it pertains to men's biological propensities and how we look and how we vet, if you will, vet the women we choose. It's always been based on, for men, how good she looks, because how good she looks is an indicator of her health. Even though that's not necessarily true, it's just to the naked eye, to the natural eye. That's what men deem true, right? And then it also had implications for your positive implications for the offspring. So if a woman looked good, I mean, the better you look, the more options you have in life, and that's very much true. Options as it pertains to partners, as it pertains to job offers, as it pertains to a lot of different things, right? Attractive people are favored. As wrong as that is, it's right in a sense that it's reality. So we had all of these things, right, that really glued together marriage and that really attracted men, the best men, to the best women, the best men who were financially fit, and the best women who were physically fit, right? But if you really look at where it started to change, it was with Rosie the Riveter. And this was in World War II, where they needed women to occupy factories, right? And occupy these steel mills and whatnot, because men were dying at such an alarming rate due to the war. And men were being drafted at such an alarming rate due to the war, that we as a country, meaning the US, they lacked the labor. They lacked the labor force to really keep up with the production, right? So they needed women into the workplace. And this was a grave mistake, I think, by Western civilization. Not because I'm against women's rights. I believe women should have the right to do pretty much anything they want to within, reason. And reason is subjective, but by reason, I mean, as long as it's not, a threat to humanity, as in, like, it's not a direct threat. As long as it's not something heinous, then, they should, be able to do what they want to, just as men should, right? But this was really the turning point for society. I think this was a mistake. This basically killed the gender role of women. Why? Because women were no longer the homemakers, the mothers, the nurturers. Women became the providers, but men were the providers. And so what you had is, in physics, it was almost like sort of this attraction due to opposites, right? They say opposites attract, and that's definitely true in physics and chemistry. But you had this attraction due to the opposites. And what really brought them together and what really kept them together was the fact that, well, men, they provided, and women, they offered up their sexuality essentially. But women were no longer doing that. It was a positive, positive, or negative, negative attraction, right? And, such as to say that it wasn't an attraction, and they repelled each other. Because why should a man need another provider when he is the provider? And why should a woman need another provider when she is the provider, right? And so, well, naturally, I should say, that's not women's element. Women's element isn't in the workplace. Naturally, and women probably can argue with this, but naturally, it's been proven time and time again, right? Women are actually unhappy now. As a matter of fact, women's happiness is correlated with their success, and it's actually inversely correlated, right? So that the more successful women tend to get, the more unhappy they tend to get. It's because women they derive deep gratification from being nurturers, from being mothers. If you look at when a woman climbs up the career ladder, she's more likely to get a divorce. She's more likely to cheat. She's less likely to be happy. All of these things come as a result of her not being in her natural sort of social habitat, right? And so as women started to enter the workforce during Rosie the Riveter, and this is really the start, this is really the dawn of the feminist movement, Rosie the Riveter. She's almost the image for feminists. As this sort of kicked off, you see the divorce rates start to go up and up and up, and they've been going up, I believe, steadily on a steady correlation. Uh, on a strong correlation, right? They've been going up steadily for, I believe, every year since. And it's because society has sort of jumped on that wave, right? The wave that women are no longer these house dwellers, right? And they never really were, but house dwellers, as it pertains to house makers, they're no longer mothers, traditional mothers. They're no longer, traditional wives. They no longer should cook. They no longer should clean. They should be out earning. Well, the simple fact of the matter is what you have is now social norms and the social constructs colliding with biological constructs and biological norms. And sort of this question in physics it has yet to be answered, and it's sort of a puzzle. It's sort of a riddle. Is that what do you have when what do you get? What is the product when an unstoppable force meets an unmovable force? What happens when when social constructs they keep going in one direction, but they collide with our biological norms, right? Which are static in a sense that they really don't change. They provide the groundwork for all of humanity. They determine they're the determinant of our propensities. What happens when these things don't move? What happens when these things, they collide? And I think that's what we're starting to see right now. We're starting to see men and women divide from each other. And for a while, it gave women sort of the pick of the litter as it pertains to men, right? Because men, just because chivalry was still around, it was the thing sort of not to upset women, right? And so men sort of caved in because of the power of the pussy, if you will. They sort of let women just get away with whatever they want. Men would get taken into divorce courts and they would get essentially their ass handed to them, right? Women would get the kids, they would get half of men's assets, they would get to keep the house. And men were pretty much disregarded in the court system. I think that's changed. Men are starting to wake up to this, and men are starting to look at really the raw deal that marriage is, right? Marriage costs a lot. If you're a man, it's misogynistic to ask for a woman to cook and raise kids, which is really the only significance they had to a man with regards to marriage, right? But it's now misogynistic to ask a woman for that. It's also considered misogynistic to even pursue a woman nowadays. A lot of the ways of approaching women are sort of that worked in the past are nowadays considered antiquated and misogynistic. You can't go up to a woman you like and approach her. That's considered weird. You can't. You have to meet a woman through your social circle, and pretty much she holds all the power, right? Any sort of unilateral action, any action that you decide to do that's against her consent, and by against her consent, I just really mean not like rape or anything. I'm talking about just making the first move, right? She's unaware that you're going to make the first move, but if you do make the first move, it's almost considered unwelcome, unwarranted, right? And so she almost has to make the first move, even though women don't approach men, right? It's weird. But I think really what it is women get tired of men making the first move when it's not the men they desire, right? So if you're not rich, if you're not successful by society's class standards and monetary standards, then that's really when women get mad. And contrary to popular belief, it's women really don't care about a guy's appearance. Okay, that's obviously a huge plus, but it's a huge plus given he already has two things: money and society and social status, right? I mean, if women will date a billionaire frog, given the opportunity. It's just how women they seek provision and they seek protection. Okay, and that none of that really has to providing and protecting doesn't have to do with looks. Money is the all time provider and protector. Okay, but I think sort of where we land with all of this is that men are now becoming more and more fed up, and they see more and more how society is wronging them. And I think that men, their natural response to this is to go the other way, to go their own way. And so women are, the women I do know that have heard of the MGTOW movement are really against it. And I mean, it's not hard to see why. I mean, their field day has come to an end because of MGTOW. But I think MGTOW is really, I think, the way forward for men. I encourage every man to go MGTOW. I encourage every man to stop getting into marriage. There's nothing in marriage that you can't get in in just a platonic relationship with a woman. There's nothing in marriage that you can't get with a platonic relationship with women. You don't in marriage, it's statistically speaking, you get less sex. When you're single, you get not only more sex from one woman, but you can get more sex from many women. When you're in a relationship with a woman, kids, I mean, it doesn't take marriage to have kids with a woman. I mean, it's risky either way. You know what I'm saying? So why would you get married? You can, if you just want companionship, you can be friends with her without getting married. I mean, why do you need to sign up to lose, half your shit, just so you can be friends with her when you had a friendship beforehand and you weren't married? If she truly likes you, then she'll be okay with the fact of that you guys are just going to stay friends and not get married. If she really likes you, why do you have to? Because marriage, like I said, it's really the transference of resources, right? So almost undoubtedly, if she's shooting for marriage, it's because marriage is offering her something. You got to look at what it's offering her. It's offering her. It's offering her a lifetime. It's offering her security for life. If you make more money than her, she's set for life if she can just get you to that date. And that date, I don't mean like the first date, I mean the date of the wedding. She's good. She has you. She's got you with the alimony payment should you get divorced. And here's the thing, even before you get divorced, she knows she has you by the balls. Now she doesn't have to do anything. She has a male. She doesn't have to please you or anything. She doesn't even have to make sure you're happy. As far as she's concerned, you need to make sure she's happy. Why? Because if you don't, she can, and as Stefan Molyneux put it, she could tie you to the back of her truck and then drag you down the road. And your only real options are just to, to hold on for dear life and then see what you can do to survive. Because the ride stops when she wants it to, if she wants it to, and I mean, she's benefiting from it, so why should it ever stop, right? She can take you if you don't do what she wants, if you don't take the trash out, if you don't, I don't know, clean the what are they called, the gutters on the roof. I don't know what they're called. If you don't do that, if you don't pick up the leaves in the backyard, I mean, she could pretty much, well, deny sex from you, and if you have a problem with it, go sleep somewhere else. Whereas men, if they have a problem with a woman, oftentimes, even if the woman started the problem, men will let the women have the house and they'll go sleep somewhere else for the time being. It's not like that with women. If you're chewing gum too loud in the middle of the night, she'll kick you out. Why would you? That's another reason I don't, or for another video, I guess, why I don't sort of endorse the idea of men living with their women. Not women living with their men, but men living with women. It's just you're living with the most emotionally unstable creatures on earth, and you wonder why your life is unstable when you're doing so. But you look at it, it's all been a raw deal for men, even before the divorce courts, right? And so when they get into divorce now, they now lose all their assets pretty much. They now lose their kids. They now lose all of these things when they could have just had everything they had with a woman if they stayed in a relationship. And I repeat, there is no incentive for a man to get married. There's absolutely no incentive. Anything you can list for me in marriage with a man, I'll tell you that he can get that outside of marriage. Any of the benefits offered to a man through marriage, I will argue that all of those benefits can be had without marriage. And it's true, you know? It's ultimately true. And so, because this is true, then it's easy to see how somehow along the line, how somewhere along the line, men woke up to this. It's only natural, right? If you're being used, if you're being disregarded, if you're being taken advantage of, you're eventually going to wake up. And your tolerance toward this, your threshold of tolerance, is going to be reached and ultimately broken. And once this is broken, isn't the natural response rebellion? And so we're just seeing that this rebellion is manifesting itself in the form of MGTOW. And so and because of that, and because it's so natural, it's the only real logical response to it, I believe. It's the only real reasonable response to it. To when you're being taken advantage of, to seek not to be taken advantage of. And so you rebel against your disenfranchisement. You rebel against your hardships. You rebel against you being taken advantage of. And MGTOW is that embodiment of that. It's where men are going nowadays. And I encourage, like I said before, I encourage more men to do this. It absolutely makes no sense in 2017 why you should be in a relationship with a woman that is heading towards marriage. Okay, just be in a relationship with her. They have a thing called in MGTOW called pump and dump. That's really been around for a while. It's just that MGTOW has sort of adopted it. But they have this thing called pump and dump, and I think that's what men should do. You should absolutely do that. Why? Because that's really your only benefit for having a woman. They cost a lot of money, guys. And then sort of another aspect of, sort of another reason why you should go MGTOW is really just, if you look at what women desire of men, it can never be fulfilled really by one man. See, women don't desire men. They desire qualities in men. And because they desire the qualities in men, those qualities can be fulfilled by any man. So she will never be loyal to you. She's loyal to men and the qualities that those men possessed. This is why you see even the richest and most handsome of men being taken advantage of and cheated on. It's anywhere from, I believe, 78 to 88% of divorces are initiated by women, right? And you have to look at it like, if I'm in a divorce, if I'm initiating divorce, it's because generally the person initiating the divorce is because the divorce, it's because they're not happy. Okay, men don't initiate divorces because they know they have too much to lose. Women wouldn't initiate divorces either if they knew they had too much to lose, but they know they have everything to gain. The divorces have become sort of a business for women. Get married to get divorced. That's how you can accumulate wealth. Why? Because it's the easiest way to sort of get men under your belt and just stack them and keep them there, and while you're benefiting from your past relationships with them. If I was a woman, I would do the same thing. It makes sense. Why would I stay with a guy who I may not even like, who I, maybe likes one day, but, people can grow out of relationships, who I maybe like one day, but I don't like the next? Why would I stay with him when I could, marry him, get him to marry me one time, and then have his money for life? Why would I do that, right? And if I have his kids, that's even worse. Why? Because I can pull different incomes from different men. See, if I get married to one man and then get married to another one, the alimony payments stop when I get married to the other one, right? But if I have his kids, then the child support payments keep rolling in, and depending on his income, the child is entitled to live up to his standard of living, right? So it's not even child support at that point. It's me support, right? So why would I do it? You know, what's the incentive? And so I think that's, just how the court system it rolls out today. It gives women the advantage. So I don't believe that women have any incentive to stay with a man, right? And so why should a man have incentive to get with a woman? If the end result, if two and three marriages fail, if the end result is almost always likely to be a divorce in which you'll lose, why would you set yourself up to be taken advantage of? Why would you set yourself up to lose? You don't do it. See, a man gives away all of his power in marriage. The most important thing a man can give a woman is his commitment. Why? Because his commitment means his money and it means his status. Once he gives that up, that is his power. Once he gives that up, he is completely subject to anything she'll do. His balls are in her hands at that point. It's true. And so a man's power, a man's only power, his best power really, is outside of marriage, but before marriage rather than on the other side of marriage, which is divorce. It's a man's power is truly in his ability, in the status of him being single. And so I think going forward, this will be the more people this video reaches, the more people MGTOW reaches, this will be a selling point for men, and this will ultimately change the face of society. I think through this, men can start to attain the equality that used to be offered with marriage. I don't really think marriage was ever equal for men. It's always been a better deal for women. Just because, you think about it, and women just offered sex, right? Which is not like women were taking an L for offering sex. Like, men still make sex. You get what I'm saying? Like, the men are what make the sexual interaction. Like, you'll hear some men say, that was bad pussy, if you will, but you'll never really hear you'll more so often than not hear a woman say that was bad dick. And it's because men make the sexual interaction. Men are the drivers of the sexual interaction, right? So it's not like women were really doing men a favor by giving them sex. I mean, men still have to have to perform during sex. It's mutual. It's a mutual thing. So I mean, sex really wasn't. I mean, just because men wanted it, it was a plus at that point for men. But it's not really a plus if you look at it, right? And then you had, she would nurture the kids, in which they were her kids too. It's not like she was doing men a favor by nurturing the kids. They were her kids as well. But men absolutely were doing a favor by supporting her. You see what I'm saying? And I don't care if she cooked or vacuumed the house. That doesn't amount to going out and earning. It just doesn't. You know, earning pays for people to. I could buy a maid to cook for me and polish up my house, but it doesn't account in the least bit to going out and dealing with the pressures of life and dealing with other men and competing and earning. It doesn't amount to that at all. And it certainly doesn't amount to the fact that if somebody breaks in the house at, 1 o'clock in the morning, I have to go downstairs and see what's up and risk my life. You know, you men were basically a disposable ATM. I think that's the ultimate price. You literally paid with your life. You paid with your productivity, your blood, sweat, and tears, quite literally. And it didn't, I mean, blood, sweat, and tears does not amount to, bending over at the hip and, sweeping up a pile of Cheerios that a baby dropped. It just doesn't. And more often than not, I mean, women nowadays, they stay home by themselves. These rich women, they don't even watch the kids. The kids are at school or they're off at daycare somewhere. They're really just, heading down to the upscale bodega and spending their husband's money. They're really just riding around in that Mercedes G-Wagon all day, with their cool little posh clothes on, the clothes that cost $5,000 per piece, just so they can impress their other female friends, and then talk about the relationships there or how cute other men are while their husband's at work. That's really what it is. And I mean, I'm not just talking about rich women either. I'm talking about women, the average woman nowadays. The average woman is getting more from a man than she is giving the man. And to the men, and in the instances where this isn't the case, I congratulate the men. But it's about time, right? But I think this, nevertheless, I'm not going to rant on that subject anymore. But I think this is definitely the way that uh, the future. I think this is definitely the future for men, right? This is the way men need to head. With that being said, guys, share this video. This video was it wasn't really put together. I sort of just it's sort of just a train of thought. But nevertheless, I think this is a valuable train of thought that I think more and more men need to hear. MGTOW is a growing movement. Contrary to popular belief, it's not a movement just full of guys who can't get laid and are bitter. It's not that. It's not a movement just full of nerds. It's a movement full of thinking, practical, realistic men, right? That's really what it is. And of course, in any group, you're going to have the number of people, the number of undesirables that associate themselves sort of unilaterally with the group, right? But the vast majority of men, a lot of MGTOW men are just men who've been through marriage and they've come out on the other side of divorce. And they know now and they want to sort of share what they've learned from it and warn younger men too. And so in that regard, it's very valuable for men. So share this video. If you don't share this video, you're not helping anyone but yourself. Share this video. And definitely look for future videos from me and from the MGTOW movement.